From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, WRTV shedding light on a huge solar project seeking land in Shelby County. Coming up, we get an inside look at what one company is seeking in Indiana and the promise it's making to people.
Well, topping our lineup today, the pandemic is bringing attention to issues with our nation's unemployment system. The proposed changes that could make getting benefits easier. And there are new guidelines for the national moratorium on evictions, what renters and landlords can expect. And apprenticeship programs are paying off big time for some community college students. We're looking at why these particular programs are so successful.
A company has its eyes on hundreds of acres in Shelby County. The company believes the land is perfect for a solar operation. Rafael Sanchez now with the promise from a top executive and ongoing concerns from people whose properties are in high demand.
Kyle Barlow is harvesting his soybeans. The fourth-generation farmer is concerned about the future of the properties around his 2,000 acres. Kyle is among those against Utah-based S-Power, setting up a solar generating facility in Shelby County.
This is a fight for my career. I really do. I feel like that these things move in and more and more and more of them happen. This land will go away and we'll never get it back.
From soybeans to Salt Lake City, where we zoomed with Ryan Galeria, the S-Power vice president overseeing this project. His company installs solar panel facilities like this across the country. He recently addressed the Shelby County commissioners, saying that he would return next summer with a plan for a solar plant. Galeria tells WRTV that S-Power will need between 1,500 and 2,000 acres of land to build a 250 megawatt facility. Such an operation could power up 46,000 homes per year.
I can promise you that the modules that we install in these facilities are absolutely safe. There are no health considerations or concerns from our end. Even if these panels were to fracture, if there was an issue, if there was breakage, there's no evidence to suggest that there are toxic chemicals of any kind leached into the air, into the soil, into the groundwater. That is just not a concern.
Galeria is well aware of the opposition that's taken root. Despite that, he says some landowners have expressed interest in leasing or selling their land. No binding arrangements have been signed. The life expectancy of a solar facility could be as long as 40 years. S-Power says it will offer the community its exit strategy.
If this project were to be decommissioned at some point, are you telling me that the company would then be responsible to returning the land to its best practices, its best use, as you sort of found it before you moved in? Is that the plan? And is that something you would provide if that's something that, if this process moves forward?
That is the plan, and that's the commitment that S-Power will make, is that we will restore the land to its pre-construction condition, whereby we'll remove and decommission all of these facilities and restore that site to how it was the day we walked onto it.
While the harvest is underway, the community has a big crop of questions awaiting S-Power as it shows interest in setting up a solar operation in Shelbyville. Rafael Sanchez, WRTV.
And the company mentioned in the story, S-Power, later told Rafael, quote, typically an agronomist is not consulted in the planning phase of a solar power facility. However, based on the recommendation of our neighbors in this region, we intend to look into using an agronomist on this project. This would be in addition to a number of specialists, including biologists, engineers, surveyors, among others, end quote. We will continue to follow this developing story. Kevin, it looks beautiful out there.
That is our story in the weather world today. An amazing October afternoon. Just a few fair weather cumulus clouds. We'll see a general increase in the cloud cover later tonight. Those clouds will come out ahead of a cold front, which changes everything for the weekend. 82 in Lafayette, 83 in Bloomington. How about that? Temperature at 79 in Indy. Our record, by the way, was 85. Notice the temperature trend. It slides tonight, but stays very mild. It will be close to our average high temperature throughout the night tonight. There's where we'll start tomorrow. In the 60s, the chance for rain will go up. The temperature will climb 70 by the time we get to 11 a.m. And then between 2 to 3 is probably the high temperature of around 74, 75. But notice thunderstorms become likely by then. More on tomorrow's timeline for the storms coming up.
Updates now on 2 COVID vaccine trials. Moderna has enrolled all 30,000 people that it needed to take part for its 2-dose vaccine. Most participants have received both shots so far. Now, Moderna could be ready to submit an application in December. Now, AstraZeneca's vaccine trial in Brazil will continue despite a person who was enrolled dying. Now, we don't know the circumstances around that person's death, but there was an independent review that found there's no reason to be worried about the safety of the trial. Meanwhile, the FDA held its first live virtual meeting on COVID-19 vaccines today. It was broadcast live on YouTube because there's so much interest, but also just to make sure that people understand what's going on. So there's added transparency. Some have wondered if FDA standards for emergency use approval are high enough. Like, how long should trial groups be monitored for long-term effects? Some experts say distributing a vaccine will be as or more challenging than actually developing one. CDC is previewing new plans submitted by states and areas on what that will look like. Washington state health leaders talked about their plan, calling it more of really a guide than a playbook. They're relying on vaccine providers already in place. And a big chunk of the framework includes focus groups, interviews, and community conversations with those disproportionately affected by this virus.
That's what's going to help inform our plans going forward, help us figure out what are the criteria and around equitable distribution. How can we help use that information to continue to figure out how we're sub-prioritize vaccines when there's not enough for everybody who wants to be vaccinated?
Washington health officials think once vaccines are ready, states will get a certain percentage based on state population. Now, for Washington, they estimate 2% of the supply. Now, one part that isn't clear is how exactly everything's going to be paid for. Now, there is federal funding to support distribution, and the vaccine itself is paid for, but it's not clear yet just how to cover administration or office visit costs for those who don't have health insurance.
We still need more information on, is there going to be limits to how much those fees could be? And another piece is we're doing thinking on around is how do we make sure there's access and who's going to cover those types of related costs for anybody who doesn't have health insurance.
Most of the vaccines in late-stage trials are 2-dose, and another massive undertaking is creating effective ways to remind and get people back to take that second dose, and that could include phone calls, emails, text messages, a registry, even just mailing reminders to people's homes. So that remains to be seen. Now, next in our lineup, the pandemic is bringing attention to issues with our nation's unemployment system. The proposed changes that could make getting benefits easier. Nationally, there are fewer people applying for unemployment benefits. Last week, 787,000 people in the U.S. filed jobless claims, but we are still at historically high levels. Many have used their state unemployment aid and are transitioning to a federal extended benefits program that lasts another 3 months. Getting unemployment benefits has been frustrating for people across the country during the pandemic as they deal with different backlogs in the system.
Unemployment systems were not built to handle the high volume of claims that we have seen during this pandemic, and they also haven't been built in a way where they're able to easily communicate with the public and with claimants.
Julia Simon Michelle is an attorney with Philadelphia Legal Assistance. It is one organization that's calling for changes to modernize our unemployment systems nationwide.
They were built, understandably, for the agency to be able to do their job. They were built from their perspective, but never with a worker-centered design. And it's really shown to be problematic during this disaster when access has been vital to keeping people in their homes and food on the table.
Changes that Philadelphia Legal Assistance and others are calling for include making sure every state website is mobile responsive so people who don't have computers at home can still access them, and also making sure that there is 24/7 access to online services.
It's amazing that we are in 2020 and you can order a piece of clothing at any time of the day or night, but you can't access information about your unemployment claim or file a claim.
Now, another change they say needs to be made is making password reset easier. Right now, people may have to spend hours on the phone trying to reset their password or have to wait to get a new password mailed to them. Now, there's also an issue with not all unemployment materials being translated into Spanish and other languages. Simon Michel says that some states have responded to some of these concerns amid the pandemic, but not everyone. All right, we got more to get to here in our lineup. There are new guidelines for the national moratorium on evictions. Talk about what renters and landlords can expect. Tenants and landlords around the country are on a roller coaster ride with the eviction moratorium ordered by the CDC. The mandate protecting tenants was put in place last month, but within days, landlords pushed back, filing several lawsuits against the agency. Now, as the lawsuits are being fought, Alicia Nieves found that the CDC may be rolling back some protections.
After being hit with one lawsuit after another, last week the CDC responded to the lawsuits in court, seeking to uphold the eviction moratorium mandate, but outside of court issuing new guidelines that convey a slightly different message.
The changes created new burdens for renters to have to meet and created some holes in the protections that those renters need.
Diane Yantel is with the National Low Income Housing Coalition, an organization concerned about the new burden renters have to prove their financial distress, but also over this new bit of information released in the guidance.
Landlords can file evictions, and courts can essentially take every step in the eviction process up to actually removing somebody from their home. That has a significant impact and ultimately will mean more low-income people leaving their homes, losing their homes before the moratorium even expires.
As many renters do not want to go through an eviction process and tend to cave to moving out before the court-ordered eviction dates. The National Apartment Association, which attached itself to the lawsuit against the CDC, cautions the new guidelines aren't as big of a victory as they may seem for landlords. They do not put landlords much closer to recovering the estimated $12 to $17 billion outstanding in back rent. Bob Penniger heads the NAA.
I think the guidelines put out by the CDC provide a path forward. I still maintain that the guidelines put out by the CDC are a half step to a solution.
A full step, he believes, would be a solution that helps landlords and tenants. Interestingly enough, advocates on both sides agree on a better solution.
We still need to have a stimulus act that will provide direct rental assistance.
At least $100 billion in emergency rental assistance.
But that is up to Congress, and it is looking less likely that any kind of stimulus package will pass before the election. More likely that a court will rule on whether to uphold the eviction moratorium or not before then. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
We want to get you up to speed on an upcoming event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Gleaner's Food Bank will hold a food distribution event on October 31st. Fruits, vegetables, meats, spices, and Halloween treats will be available at the Make a Fresh Mobile at the Brickyard Food Drive. Anthem will also provide free flu shots at that event that will run from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. People should enter the track at Gate 2 off West 16th Street. We will remind you of this event the closer we get to the actual date. Kevin.
And Amanda, speaking of the track, this is our camera on top of the pagoda there on the front straightaway. Of course, we've got it pointed toward downtown Indy, and temperatures have been pointed toward 80 degrees all day long. We're at 79 right now, and with a little humidity, it feels like 80. How about that? It's the humidity, really, I think it's a little bit surprising, but that'll play into our thunderstorms tomorrow and the potential for a couple of stronger storms. We're on Friday at 3 o'clock. That's probably the peak temperature. It's also when the cold front will be moving from northwest to southeast across central Indiana. You can see what happens when the cold front moves through. Look at the 5 o'clock temperatures, 9 o'clock temperatures, significant drops. behind the cold front, but the rain chance will also diminish. I'll pick up the timeline early afternoon. Not to say we couldn't have a morning shower, but as we get to the afternoon, there we are at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Showers, thunderstorms cutting right through Bloomington, Indianapolis up to Muncie. A trailing line of showers then cuts through Indy again at 7 o'clock, but the main area of showers and thunderstorms will be off to the east by then. As far as our rainfall potential, another quarter to half inch, maybe isolated amounts a little higher than that. We'll talk about a change in pattern and how long that will last in just a few minutes.
One thing with the presidential race that most people, no matter your political leaning, can agree on, that first debate was pretty tough. Which is why tonight the debate commission is trying to take back the reins and will start cutting off microphones when they interrupt or don't follow the rules.
I hope that this will allow us to get a little bit more substance from the debate, because they'll have a little bit of time to establish something to actually interact with on the debate platform.
Yeah, that's the hope. Debate expert Matt Dupuis says it will likely make this debate cleaner. The mic could be cut for either candidate during their 2-minute opening statements on each topic. Now, in terms of how the candidates might act differently, well, he says that they might actually try to act like each other.
So Trump's job on Thursday essentially is going to be to come out and show a different side of himself, show that he is capable of connecting to people, that he is capable of respecting rules, moderators. Maybe the Biden campaign will try to throw a couple more punches on Thursday, try to pump up maybe some of those sound bites that come away from the debate from the Biden side as opposed to just the Trump side of things.
Now, with millions of Americans showing up early for in-person voting and already mailing in their ballots, the real question going into this is, does it even matter? Well, the expert that we talked to says it does, but likely not for changing minds.
There are some people who are just sort of leaning in one direction or sort of leaning in the other, and a debate might actually push them a little bit more into the direction that they're already leaning and then make them really want to actually vote.
Now, more votes can be a game changer in swing states, and if this debate doesn't go well, that could have some long-term implications.
The presidential debates will definitely be taking a hit in their importance and their role in the presidential elections moving forward in the 2024 election cycles and even beyond that.
Some unexpected voting communities could play a significant role this election. Usher Qureshi shows us how the South Asian community is mobilizing like never before.
Young, professional, and politically savvy, South Asian Americans like Sabina Bukhari are beginning to flex their electoral power.
This is a momentous election, as was the last one, and so have definitely upped my political engagement in all the ways that I can.
The Republican Hindu Coalition and South Asians for Biden are just two groups driven by very different political ideologies that are presenting potentially potent voting blocs, especially in key races.
It's a disproportionately affluent electorate. It's a community that's growing. It could make a huge difference in, say, Senate and House races.
South Asian Americans have traditionally high voter turnout and have become the second largest immigrant group in the U.S. They also tend to lean Democratic. A post-2016 election survey indicates that 90% of Bangladeshi Americans, 88% of Pakistani Americans, and 77% of Indian Americans voted for Hillary Clinton.
The President of the United States of America.
President Trump has made a major play for the Indian vote with campaign ads. And last year, a large rally in Texas alongside Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi attracted a crowd of 50,000 Indian Americans.
Common sense gun control matters.
This week, South Asians for Biden launched a digital ad campaign series featuring celebrities encouraging South Asians to vote blue.
I know a lot of the aunties and uncles tend to be much more conservative and kind of lean Republican for sure. You know, I think it's up to younger people, younger than myself, to try and change some minds.
Author and filmmaker Gautam Chopra, along with his father Deepak, sister, and his niece, a first-time voter, put out their own video stumping for Biden and Harris.
We all just, three generations and sort of all feel very strongly about the stakes of this election and decided to participate in it.
Making inroads at the highest levels of office, as Bukhari means the power of the South Asian vote is being recognized, paving the way for future generations.
Young South Asians and young South Asian women who do want to occupy a role in our government one day, it's important to have that representation so we know that we can and to be able to represent our communities to the best of our ability.
In Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi reporting.
Audra, thank you. And apprenticeship programs are paying off big time for some community college students. So we're taking a look at why these particular programs are so successful. Earn and Learn programs are really paying off for community college graduates. You may know these programs as an apprenticeship. A study by Opportunity America and Brookings Institution looked into just how well these programs work. They specifically studied the Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education program in Kentucky. Community college students spend 2 years in school and in the workplace, and they get paid for it. They're usually jobs in manufacturing technology, and the study found that these specific graduates are making a lot more money after finishing the program in comparison to those who didn't participate.
So 5 years out, they're earning $98,000 a year, and that is $45,000 more than other people from the same community college who are getting ready to go into the workforce.
Now, not all apprenticeship programs will necessarily yield the same result, but the chance of getting a higher income job after community college, they say, is still high. Experts at Opportunity America say the reason this particular program is successful is because it's companies telling community colleges what they need out of students.
It's employer driven, right? Employers, a little group of employers come together and tell the community college what to do and how they want things to work. And it's almost like a franchise model.
We did ask how these jobs fare during an economic crisis like the one we're in right now. And experts say the pandemic has really helped speed up what companies were already doing, which is creating robots that can do certain tasks, which means there's a great need for people who can program and troubleshoot those robots. Now, small business owners in college towns who depend on students and professors are raising a red flag. Tomorrow, what the business owners are doing to try and keep the lights on and attract new customers.
And I'm set to focus on tomorrow's rain timing, how much rain we may see, and the severe weather threat, and what it means for the weekend. A lot to talk about. See you in the next half hour. The news starts again right now.